Welcome everyone to the webinar, Improving Communications in the Voluntary Return and Reintegration Networks. My name is Camilo Coz and I'll be the moderator for today's session. And I'd like to start with a housekeeping note. If you have any technical problem, please email events@migrationpolicy.org and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the call. Please type any question into the Q&A box or email them to events@migrationpolicy.org. This webinar, should also say, is part of a research partnership between MPI and the German Development Cooperation Agency, GIZ, supported by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. And I'd like to start with a perspective from Europe, since our guests today are primarily assisting migrants returning from the EU towards Africa and Asia. And as we've seen again in the past weeks in Europe, voluntary return and reintegration continues to be at the center of what we call a comprehensive approach to migration. This idea that for people without the right to stay in Europe, voluntary return reintegration programs offer the possibility to return in a more dignified manner and to access a form of assistance to resettle, access housing, healthcare, education, and to start an income-generating activities. This program takes on various forms with many different actors involved, and I'm speaking here about programs in Europe, but other countries like Mexico also cooperate with the International Organization for Migration and others to conduct return and provide reintegration support. In Europe, the border agency Frontex has recently launched its own Europe-wide program called Joint Reintegration Services, which provide return and reintegration assistance to returnees from Europe through non-governmental organizations, NGOs, such as Caritas or Waldo. So this is a landscape in Europe, and what has stricken me in all the conversation we've been having with partners in the past years is really how we communicate about these policies, this program in Europe, in the different EU member states, but also in the countries of origin. What are the goals around this public, the strategy communication, the target audience, and what this means for how policymaker and practitioner approach migrants, but also their family and their broader constituency. And so today I'd like to think through a few questions. First, how European government and their partner communicate about the existence of this program with migrants themselves, often a time where they do not wish to return to their home country, do not feel comfortable planning for this new chapter, but also how the same government communicate with their own public opinion in Europe at a time that we know anything related to migration tend to trigger very divisive debate. Another question is how government in Europe and in countries of origin share information with one another about these policies and this program. I've been in many conversations with partners in origin country during which they said they do not know about the new role of Frontex or do not have a mapping of all the voluntary return and reintegration program active in their own country. And in a number of countries, organizations like IOM have thought, to raise awareness about return and reintegration among policymakers, local stakeholders, with a series of guideline research on what reintegration processes entail, but much remains to be done. And there are also questions about, what government in countries of origin are aware, when they're aware, how do they even communicate this to their broader constituency? And with a final question, how can public communication around return and reintegration assistance further help returnees and their relative and this highly complex reintegration process to fight, prejudice that many returnees face upon return? And to discuss all of this issue, I have three guests with me today. Catherine Rambaud, who is a policy officer at the International Unit at the Federal Agency for the Reception of Asylum Seeker FedAsyl, working for the government of Belgium. Frank Ulrich Alden-Nkomba, who is diplomat in charge of migration affairs at the Cameroonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Sijal Aziz, who is a director of the Women Empowerment, Literacy and Development Organization, Waldo, in Pakistan. And together, I'd like to tackle some of the questions I outlined before. And I would like first to turn to Catherine Rambaud from FedAsyl, because FedAsyl is the lead agency when it comes to voluntary return and reintegration in Belgium. And it's also the agency that has been one of the most active in terms of outreach efforts to migrants. So Catherine, if you could speak a little bit about what has been done to better inform migrants and people in Belgium about the existence of the program, and how Fedazil, as a government entity, has chose to communicate about this different component, and feedback you've gotten about these different activities.
Sure, of course. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for introducing me and inviting us, Camille, for having these positive words about our work. I have myself been able to be present here today, but the biggest challenge will be to present and to respond to all of these questions in only 8 minutes. So I will try in this introduction sharing with you the most important highlights as to our points. Of course, we feel free to have the Q&A afterwards and even be in contact after this session if you would want more details about our work. But in the highlights, I will come to give a little bit information about the context, about our governance structure. Thirdly, about how we implement this AVRR strategy. And to go very much into detail at the end, the fourth point, I would like to focus on how we do the outreach, why it is done, where it is done, and how it is done. Maybe beginning by drafting you a little context, giving you a little context information for those who are not aware that Belgium has a specific situation when it comes to return programming, since Fedazil is responsible for the voluntary return only, and forced return is carried out by the Immigration Office. So both are in different mandates, and this separation actually helps, in our views, helps to safeguard the voluntary nature of the program. We feel very important to have set up since a lot of years now a governance structure where we strive for the whole of government and a multi-governance approach. This to us is very, very important, and we feel that the AVRR program is centrally governed at national management level, but on the other hand, decentrally implemented. So these aspects are key to the organization or the implementation and the creation of our program. What I mean by that is that Fedazil coordinates the program at national level by centrally managed governance as it comes to policy design, communication, support of general services, management, funding, monitoring, and evaluation. And Fedazil does so by a long-standing, more than 10-year standing cooperation with two of our reintegration partners that are IOM and Caritas. With them, we are able to make the bridge from the country in Europe, Belgium, to the country of origin. And we co-create or collaborate along the whole process or the different phases, starting from the pre-departure phase to the post-arrival phase. But this is the key is that the AVRR program is also decentrally implemented in Belgium, and we understand by this that it is adapted to specific realities on the ground or specific context on the ground, adapted to the target group, and so created case-by-case management. In the implementation, we put a lot of efforts in the collaboration with different partners and different stakeholders. So we strive for a whole of society or a multi-stakeholder approach, both in Belgium and in country of origin. And specifically in Belgium, we strive involving as many partners as possible. So this can be civil society, municipalities, other authorities directly involved or in contact with the target audience. And we strive at guarding or maintaining this cooperation with permanently involved stakeholders by, for example, offering trainings or organizing events to disseminate information on the AVRR program, especially when changes to the program are to be made. For example, at this point, the current Frontex GRS developments. But Also, a brief note on how we do this outreach on AVRR. As I said, 3 key questions here are: why do we do it? Where do we do it, and which information is passed on? As to the point of why do we do it, what is the strategy, what are the guiding principles for the Belgium program? The first one is to the key guiding principle is to be able to raise awareness about the program. We feel before migrants are aware of the AVRR program or are aware of the option that AVRR exists, they first have to be made aware of its existence. So we first have to find a way to reach them and to inform them about the program. So granting accessibility to the program, and this we feel importantly by national coverage, is key. We also feel very important that we have to analyze the profile of the beneficiary, because for us, we have, for example, beneficiaries in the reception centers or other beneficiaries in irregular stay, and these different profiles really need different approaches in the communication strategy. We also feel a key guiding principle is the informed choice. So as a counselor, we feel that we need to be transparent and complete in the information that we provide to the beneficiary and explain actually all the risks and advantages and disadvantages of every single option and embed AVRR in a wider spectrum of all topics. So both asylum procedure, illegal stay, AVRR. As to support the beneficiary into the decision-making process, because this at the end is the responsibility of the migrant. And so we also feel a key guiding principle that there should always be a possibility for the migrant to drop out of this AVRR choice without consequences. Where we inform our beneficiaries, we have adapted or created a multi-level approach, because we felt that we had to focus on many different aspects of the reality in Belgium. We first have the communication within our reception network, where we have the return path about the possibility of voluntary return, and through which we inform on key moments via the social worker about the possibility of a voluntary return. This is our primary target group, let's say, but actually outside the reception network is the second big target group. And this target group is actually more challenging to reach, as we do not automatically meet them in the reception centers, and many of these people are in irregular status and want to stay actually under the radar. So for this even bigger, or even can be even as big, we have created the project, which is probably well known, the Reach Out project. But we also have our 5 return desks and our IOM partner network to be able to offer a national coverage. Next to that, very importantly as well, is the creation of the CONEX network, which is a network of local partnerships. So actually a network of partnerships with local municipalities and civil society, where they have the responsibility to inform, refer, and pick up signals from the field. I will pass on the last point, and that is how this information is shared, or which information is shared. I think that was something that Camille also wanted us to tell something about. As I said already, it's really important to offer correct and complete information as from the pre-departure point to the post-arrival stage. So we make the beneficiary acquainted with the reintegration partners, At a certain point, we are also transparent about the amount the reintegration support will have, but we do this in incremental communication. So we adapt this information, the amount of information, and the way of addressing the person according to the profile of the migrant. So we do this really case by case. In this, we use customized communication tools, which help us to spread and support the message. And we are very focused on having an expectation management, not only to communicate on success stories, but also bringing bad stories to bring a realistic view of the AVR program. I think my last point, and I'm sorry if I had a little bit more time, is last point we really feel important in how we share our information is to counter the resistance. So sometimes we feel resistance in directly with the target group, but also very importantly is the resistance we feel in the wider public. So Belgium actually is an internally divided country in terms of politics and views on migration. We have right-wing Flanders and left-wing Wallonia. So it's very it's a difficult exercise for us to balance between both. And so perception on the AVR program in Belgium has not always been easy, or sometimes even miscellaneous. So we feel really important to embed the AVR program in a broader perspective of future options for us to be able to counter opposition around the topic and to gain entry to certain civil society stakeholders. I think that was the point I wanted to make. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for this overview of the approach of FedAsil to outreach to the migrants who could be interested in joining voluntary return and reintegration. As you said, the importance of decentralization, involvement of NGO, municipalities, and this incremental approach, and while also managing expectation as to the support provided. And now that you've provided us this perspective from Belgium, I'd like to turn to Frank Ulrich, who is diplomat in charge of migration affairs at the Cameroonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and has been involved in many conversations about voluntary return and reintegration from Europe, but also other regions of the world. And Frank Ulrich, we've heard from Catherine, how Belgium communicates about voluntary return and reintegration program. And I was interested in shifting this perspective and asking you, as a representative of a government hosting returnees, how national authorities communicate about this voluntary return, their cooperation with European government on this topic in this area, and reintegration programs more broadly.
Okay, thank you, Camille, to give me the floor. I first want to thank Catherine, Rambo, Sija, Aziz, Weddo. I hope that the pronunciation is okay to be part of this important panel. So my presentation is going directly to the government of Cameroon and communication on voluntary return and reintegration program. The aim of my topic is in three parts. First of all, we have to present the sort of government communication on voluntary return and reintegration program. Secondly, we have to identify the different challenge of this. And in the third position, I'm going to present some of the effort made by the government about discrimination against migrants. So, as you know, since 2017, Cameroon has been faced with the need of organizing the return of thousands of compatriots in an irregular situation abroad. To date, we have 5,000 compatriots from the Mediterranean route who have benefited from the voluntary return and reintegration program run jointly by Cameroon and its partners. However, there are still Cameroonians in an irregular situation around the world, including more than 3,000 in Cyprus, Then you have the same number in Mexico right now. So in response of this new situation, the government of Cameroon has undertaken to include this section of the population in existing national return and reintegration program, while adapting them to the specific needs expressed by these returnees. In this respect, and with a view to the success of this arrangement, which had to come the phenomenon of migration, informing the target population, that means returning migrants, remains an essential challenge. It is therefore important to consider the scope and effectiveness of government communication and return and reintegration issue. In other words, are the target population aware of the program developed for their benefits? So you have the government communication. Cameroon has around 10 return and reintegration programs, the implementation of which for the remit of various sectoral administration, whose actions are coordinated by the Ministry of External Relations. As a first result, the communication method used is very often, let's say that institutional. More especially, each ministerial department involved is responsible for defining appropriate measures to ensure that the initiative undertaken are published, not only to users, but also to partner organizations. In this context, the communication tool mobilized most often consists of the publication of memo, harassment campaign aimed at target audience, the production of communication media, such as flyer or poster, and the use of some social network. But in Ministry of External Relations, we have a Facebook platform, Twitter, with the two major platforms used to communicate about those different programs. Then in the second part, you have the relay challenge. The main challenge in the development of the unified national strategy for the dissemination of voluntary return and reintegration program, whether initiated by the government of Cameroon or proposed by foreign partners. Other problems include, first, the difficult coordination between the players involved, so the different parties. Second, the lack of effective monitoring and evaluation of returnees. The lack of appropriate financial and logistical resources, and insufficient qualified human resources. That brings us to the third part, with the prospect for improvement. By way of perspective, it may be useful to, first, involve the migrant state of origin in the design of return program to improve communication. It's important to us because this cooperation will make it possible to ensure that the objective design by each party are achieved. We have to draw up a public for reintegration of returning migrants. This policy could set out the issue involved in its implementation, specify the objectives of, identify the different players involved, define the implementation channel and a monitoring and evaluation system. We have to relaunch discussion of effective communication of program while adapting them to current challenge. Find alternative source or resource of funding for the program and to build a capacity of staff involved in implementation returns program. That's the main challenge. Then, as you all know, in Cameroon, we have the National Commission for Bilingualism and Multiculturalism, who is currently conducting a vast campaign against the discriminatory acts, including hate speech. Although it is not necessarily aimed at returning migrants, its objective is to contribute to improving knowledge and the desire to live together among Cameroonians of all categories. So Camille is going to stop here my presentation. Then we can give more and more indication in the Q&A section. So thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Frank Ulrich, for this useful overview, and I think outlining how the government has been involved, the different approaches, and all of the challenges that you've been facing. And on this, I'll turn to our final panelist, Tijal Aziz, who is, as I said, the director of WELDO in Pakistan. And Tijal has a wealth of experience in reintegration activities. She's worked in this area for many years with various partners, including Frontex most recently. And I'd like to ask her about her experience regarding communication on voluntary return and reintegration. And from the perspective of a civil society organization, how you think about this public communication, if you even have a strategy, who are the target group, what are the key messages, and whether there are also limitations as to how you communicate or who you're trying to reach out to.
Yes, thank you so much, Camille. And my regards to Catherine Rombots and Frank Ulrich as well. I hope I pronounced the names right. So regarding the communication, you know, it's a problematic issue when you're working with attorneys, because your target group is very small as compared to the communities. So you have to keep your message very targeted to the returnees and make sure that the community doesn't hear that message in terms of having, you know, the returns and integration program as a tool for going abroad, because they will know we will be coming back anyway through the returns and integration programs. So you have to keep that communication very targeted. We cannot publicize the returns and integration programs very much because we don't want to encourage upstream migration, upstream irregular migration, because we don't want returnees to go abroad knowing that there is a program through which they can come back. We rather target the people in Europe, specifically for the GRS project, so that if they want to come back to Pakistan, we can provide them with the information that is available. How we like to, what are our target group for this communication? So one of the target group is definitely the returnees who have come back. The second target group is the returnees who have come back earlier and who have set up their businesses. The third target group is the families of the returnees who have been reintegrated into the Pakistani society. So we like to focus on these three target groups. Why the returnees who have come back earlier? Because sometimes they can assist the returnees who have just come back into Pakistan in setting up the business. So I'll just like to quote a little example here. So one of our returnees wanted to set up a fishery with the reintegration assistance that he had received. Now, during that particular time, we could not find any fishery consultants, and the returnee also could not find any fishery consultant who can help him make that fishery farm there in his town. So what happened is there was already a returnee who had come back 2 years earlier to Pakistan from France, who had set up a fishery plant and whose fishery plant was farm was running very nicely and making a good profit. So we put that returnee who just come back in touch with the other returnee, and he assisted them throughout the process, like from the very first day of what to do, how to do, which license to get, and whatever is involved in the fishery, until the very last day on which he was able to start running that project there on his own. So that is why we say involving the returnees who have already come back is very important with the returnees who have just come back. And the family is very important in Pakistan. And by family, I don't mean blood relatives. I mean your cousins, your extended cousins, because we have this joint family system here in Pakistan, where in one household you'll find, you'll find your brother living there with his wife. You'll find your own wife living there in the household. You find your uncle. You find your aunt. So involving those family members is like providing the assistance to a returnee in his city. I would say it's not a home, it's a whole city in itself, where the returnee has to come back, has to live throughout the day, come back from his job and then be there, come back as for business and be there and talk to those people, because that's part of the regular culture in Pakistan. So we like to involve the family members as well into this. So I would say for our outreach efforts, we have to be very, very, careful so that we don't, people in Pakistan don't use it as a tool to migrate abroad irregularly. The goals, I would say, for the outreach are definitely to provide better assistance to the returnees, that they are able to reintegrate into the society. On returns and integration in 2009, a good example that would tell me what is a sustainable reintegration. So how would I define it? Is a returnee living here in Pakistan not just sustainably reintegrated economically, but also he's able to enjoy his life with his family as well. So our goal is to achieve that sustainable reintegration in terms of economic reintegration, in terms of reintegration and social reintegration, and also cultural reintegration, because it matters a lot here. These are some of the things, and what Weldo has been doing since 2009, it's been working on different returns and reintegration projects. We have so far worked with over 12,000 returnees. We started working on the very first ARI project, then AREN, then AREN SA, then AREN SAP, then the latest, then AREN Slow Track, then the latest AREN. It takes a lot of effort to remember all those ARENs. So it's like throughout the returns and integration programs. What I feel is different as compared to the previous projects with the GRS projects is GRS very dynamic. And I feel that it is important that reintegration partners back in their countries of origin are able to set up communication with the potential returnees who want to come back to Pakistan, for example, in our case, because that information will assist the returnees in making an informed decision to come back. So outreach from a service partner's point of view is more important for the people who are living there in Europe, who want to come back or who are interested just to listen to some of the programs that we have to offer, rather than the people who are here. Here in Pakistan, the outreach has to be limited to the returnees who have just come back, the returnees who have come back sometime earlier, and the family members of that particular returnee.
Thanks a lot, Sijal. I'll just specify that AREN is used to be a European-wide return reintegration project for audience that is not in Europe and not familiar with this program. And thanks, Sijal, for outlining this different target group, for your communication action, what you've been thinking about in terms of outreach, and especially on this direct engagement with returnees. And as we close, I think we've heard about a few tension in Belgium between different regions sometime, in Cameroon with difficulty connected to resources, and in Pakistan with a sense that broader outreach might contribute to encourage people to migrate irregularly, but on the other end, the need for people to know that this is happening and to also engage with families and with broader communities. I'd just like to end with each of you, if you could share one concrete recommendation that, moving forward. Sijal, you've already mentioned one, Frankulik as well, but Catherine, over to you. What do you think could be done to improve, both in terms of the outreach to the people who need to know that this program actually exists, but also the whole social cohesion around returning, coming back to their country of origin, but also the constituency in Belgium or other countries as to the existence of these programs.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I will repeat what I had already brought up in my first point. I think the biggest recommendation we could make is that to make the governance a whole of government and a whole of society approach, because in this way I feel it is possible to tackle different aspects of the problematic, and so specific recommendations we would propose is offering tailored cultural sensitive approach, but also, as has been said before, embedding it into a broader approach of counseling on future orientations, because we really feel resistance when we target beneficiaries who are not convinced of the path of voluntary return at that moment, and we really feel that they have a wall in front of them and they really block this communication. So first of all, make contact with the target group and see how, in which way you could assist in giving them information, referring them to different instances in Belgium, and then at what point AVRR becomes an option. At that point, bringing the AVRR topic to the table. That would be for me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Frank, Ulrich, and Sijal, if you have a point to add before we move to Q&A.
So please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sijal, over to you.
Okay, so I mean, from our point of view, what we have experienced over the years is returnee-centered programs are very important, because returnee is not a community. Returnee is not a social network. Returnee is a person who's come back to, for example, Pakistan on a micro level. He's setting up a business on micro level. So social programs aimed at the community development should be there, definitely, but they don't assist the returnees right away. So with the returnees, you have a vulnerable group that needs to be assisted right away. We cannot wait until the society around the returnee develops, and then the society can help them develop as well. So programs that run in parallel to the returns and reintegration programs that are already there are very good in our experience. For example, we had a program in which the returnees were coming back. Then there was a separate program running on the side, which provided them with the option to get technical and vocational education and training and job promotion, not as a part of a single program, but as a separate program. So when you have 2 parallel or 3 parallel programs running, every program will have its own goals. You can allocate staff to that particular goal. You can allocate resources to those tasks. So it works a lot better if there are parallel programs, or if one program is divided into subcategories in which 2 or 3 options for the returnees are running in parallel. Also, I've been hearing it over nearly all the sessions I've been attending of referral networks. So I really am unable to understand what referral networks. We don't have a single network in Pakistan that can help or assist the returnees. We don't have job promotion agencies. We don't have government-run loan programs. We have some loan programs that are being run by the banks, and they rarely give any loan to the returnees who have come back to Pakistan, unless and until they mortgage their property, which in the first place they don't have because they have gone out. So it's overrated. I mean, when we put referral programs in any of the project proposals or in any of the reintegration program, is literally just saying, just put that to the referral programs, let referral programs take care of it. And there's no actual consideration for where the returnee is going to. So we have to take our focus off the referral programs and really see what the referral programs we want, what we want the referral programs to do, and how we can actually do that instead of the referral networks or the referral programs. So, I mean, this is strictly speaking from the point of view of Pakistan. So these are, I mean, some of the things that I would like to happen in my utopia, but so far they are not happening. I mean, some of them are, some of them not.
Thanks, Sijal. And yeah, I think the conversation about the referral and I think also how we communicate about the existence of these referral pathways in a number of countries. So if a returnee goes back, receive assistance from Waldo, IOM or Caritas, and then could be referred to another organization or public institution to receive additional assistance. Things is very much depend on the situation in the country. And there's been a lot of efforts in other countries to build this referral system, but understand that in Pakistan that wouldn't be so relevant. Frank Ulrike, I turn over to you for some final words on what in Cameroon you would like to see more of around this communication efforts.
Okay, thank you, Camille, to give me back the floor. But I'm going to say the same thing, but the special recommendation for Cameroon is to see about how we communicate about those programs. Because those programs include people who are living in some country, then they have to going back to the country of origin. So if we need a real communication, as we said, we have to involve the state of origin in the design of the return program. The different programs, especially in the program who are elaborated from the Europe, because we will receive program from some states of the European Union, but there's some, how they call it, in French, we talk about décalage. We have to create some link between the program who are proposed and the reality of the file. So that's the principal recommendation about the Cameroon. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that that's actually quite a common problem that either national authorities, but also major civil society organizations are not always aware of all the voluntary return and reintegration programs that are active in the same countries. And that's a dynamic that's been at play over and over. But I'd like now to turn to you for some question from the audience. And please, if you want to add in the Q&A, please add, you can type your question. Add a first question for you, Catherine, actually two. One is whether you had data on what happens in terms of food security, for returnee once they go back to their country of origin. And then a second question on how, and that's I think for Frank Ulrike as well, on how you work with consulate and embassies in Belgium to share information about the existence of this program.
Yes, I will tackle the first question first, because I think that the answer can be brief. I am not the expert on data on this point. I can pass it on to my colleague, but I'm not aware of very specific data on this aspect. I think the most elaborated data we have on the, of course, we collect data on the part of the post-arrival phase, but the most data is collected through the Riyadh process, and I'm not aware of very specific data on this topic. Excuse me.
Catherine, do you want to explain what Riyadh is? Because I think we have partners who are not familiar with this.
You may if you want to.
Sure. I mean, this is a system that European partners are using on both sides. So CIGEL, for example, has been using it, and this help govern like partners in Europe and partner on the other end, service organization that to share information about each caseload. So that's a case management. That's a case management tool.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to comment on your work with consulate and embassies?
Mm-hmm. This is a very important point, and I'm very happy that it has been raised because I haven't been able to address it myself. This is something we still tackle with ourselves. We have done efforts in the past, and we still continue to do efforts. But we feel that this is a continuous work in progress, let's say. Not only because every consulate has its own reality, has its own context to take into consideration. So this actually asks for a different approach, but we have been addressing embassies. We are regularly in contact with different embassies. Of course, we prioritize the embassies that are like priority countries for us. And we think it's very important to have this contact to be able to inform them about, on one hand, our program, but also to get in touch with them and to see how we can have mutual benefits for them and for us, and to exchange on information. And I was very happy about CIGEL bringing the point of this misuse sometimes of this information when outreaching in the country of origin. So this kind of information would be very important as well for the consulates to give to us or to bring to us. So we to wrap up this question, we are doing this. We are tackling mostly priority countries because of time-consuming efforts, but we feel it's really important to do so, and also to explain the benefits and the goals of our AVRR program, as also to make sure that our AVRR information is not misused for other purposes, for example, for false returns, readmissions. So these points are also very important to address with or to exchange on with consulates and embassies. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Frank Ulrich, can I ask you to comment on that? Because I assume you're working very closely with the consulate of Cameroon in Europe. You mentioned Mexico, Cyprus. How do you work with them, and what kind of information can you share?
Okay, thank you, Camille, to give me the floor one more time. But I want to know, is the consulate of Cameroon, or is the consulate or the embassy of
I'm talking the consulate of Cameroon. So the consulate of Cameroon in Cyprus, in Belgium, in Mexico. How would you say that they engage with nationals who may wish to return or may face a situation that lead to their voluntary return?
Okay, that's good. But first of all, we have to know that we cannot do that work without our embassy or our consulate abroad. Because when we are informed that there are some Cameroonians who are in irregular situation, the first communication is doing by our embassy, by our external service. Then those consulate or those embassy inform back the Ministry of External Relations to the situation. So when we are informed, what we try to do, some people, as Cypriots, send us a list of presumed Cameroonians. So when we take the list, we send the list to the police to be sure that those people who are present as Cameroonian are really Cameroonian. That's the first step. So when we have done that work, we send back the list to our embassy to communicate with the state which sent us the list at the first time. So when that job is done, the second thing we have to do is to be sure that those people have, how they call it, passport, or if the passport is still in use, or if the passport is not in use, we have to doing for those people some type of laissez-passer. So those documents is going to permit those people to going back to Cameroon. So is the role of our embassy or the consulate there. I take some example in Belgium, is our embassy in Brussels who have to deliver the laissez-passer. After we are sure that the potential returnees are really Cameroonian. So we have to work closely with that structure. We cannot do a complete work. We cannot do a real work about the return if we are not include our embassy and our consular abroad. Thank you, Camille.
Thank you very much. And I'll turn to Sijal with two questions. One is whether you've been able to track the sustainability and the effectiveness of AVR program over time, over 5 years, over 10 years, or what you think would be needed to do so. And then also if you've been, if there's been organization, that are connected to religious organizations that have been involved in assisting returnees in Pakistan.
Well, regarding the sustainability, all the projects that we have implemented so far only provide, the contact with the returnee up to 1 year. But since we are also working with the returnees ever since the first day, the very first returnee we received, therefore we are gathering information on how successful the sustainability was. This information depends mostly upon when the returnee has come back to Pakistan, which business or which other area did he or she invest their integration assistance into, how have they wrapped up that business, did they open another business, and that's after wrapping up the business that they opened with their integration assistance, how supportive has the family been to the returnee who has come back to Pakistan? Have they faced any discriminatory issues from their family members, from their neighbors, from other members that has made the returns and integration process problematic for them? And whether they want to return back to Europe or some other countries, do they feel that they can still live in Pakistan and continue with whatever they have started? So it all depends upon their different types of returnees. Some of them have already gone back, but not specifically to the European countries, to the Middle Eastern countries. Some of them who had started their businesses, then decided like after 2 years or 3 years that business was not working and another business was working. So what happened in that case is they sold that business, but eventually bought the other business, started the other business with the investment that they had received, with the money that they had received after selling the first business. Some of them are, of course, very successful. So it's a mixed cup. So some of them started with a single business, and then they are now operating 2 or 3 businesses that are closely associated. For example, one person started a meat business, a meat processing plant, and first he started with the buffaloes and cows. Then he added in Pakistan we call it beef and mutton. So then he added a mutton side to it, and now he's also operating a poultry. So it's a mixed bucket. You cannot say for sure that they have been sustainable because some of them have not been. So you cannot say for sure they have not been sustainable because some of them are really very well placed. And for those returnees who really want to go back to Europe, you really cannot provide them with any assistance that will help them reintegrate into the Pakistani society. So that definitely go back to Europe. And you can allocate like 5 to 7% of the returnees who will go back to Europe in any case. So sustainability is there, but the chances of sustainability are increased with our integration programs. Once there is an organization here who can provide them with the assistance of setting up a business, lead them throughout the process, then definitely the chances of sustainability are increased. The same, for example, the same returnee has paid an agent to go abroad. He had more money or similar amount of money. I mean, I would say more money. He had more money that he paid to the agent when he went abroad than the money that he had received to come back to reintegrate into the Pakistani society. So why was he not able to work something out with more money that he already had? Because there was nobody helping him invest his money into a good reintegration program. But once they come back, they find out that there's an organization that can help us and assist us throughout the process. There's somebody who will be calling up and asking me about it. So the chances of sustainable reintegration increase. So I wouldn't say 100% of them are sustainably reintegrated. I'll never say that. 5 to 7% go abroad to Europe. 10 to 15 or even 20% go to Middle Eastern countries. You're left with the remaining. Some of them will be sustainably reintegrated. Some of them will not be sustainably reintegrated in Pakistan. And the second question was how the religious organizations.
Yeah, I think I'll just move to a final question to Catherine, and then I'm afraid we need to close if that's okay.
Please go.
Catherine, I just wanted to raise a final question that I think several participants have asked regarding the pushback, the public resistance to this reintegration program, the fact that sometime donor and have been happy with the way this program worked, but yet this program keep being criticized by public opinion, sometimes by civil society. From a donor perspective, which I think is a little bit where Fedazil stand. What's your take? And are there alternative approach, or how do you counter this critique?
It's a difficult. You kept the most difficult question to the end, I think. So I will not be able to respond it 100%. I will try bringing my point of view. I think we are convinced that it's a work that constantly asks energy, motivation, explanation, co-creation, cooperation with partners all present here today. So therefore, I think these kinds of events help shedding a light from different perspectives on for us how rich this topic of AVRR and reintegration is and can be, and what work needs to be done on this topic. So I think that is our motivation or our goal to keep on explaining, to keep on responding, to keep on trying to show the good examples and bad examples, and always having the migrant in mind and explaining to all possible persons or instances who are opposed to this program that for every case or for every person, the AVRR assistance has done something. We hope something good, a little help, a little solution at one point at a time, and therefore we keep engaging with the partners in the countries of origin. So we are very happy to have this kind of opportunities, and I hope we'll be here for many more years to come.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and thank you everyone for this very interesting session on a topic that remains to be further explored as so many different layers, so many different objective, target group approaches. I wanted to thank you also, our three speakers, but also say thank you to my colleague Lisa Dixon for all her support in organizing this event. An audio and a video recording will be available on our event website. For reporter on the call, you have the contact of our colleague Michel Mittelstadt. If you have any question, And please check out the related reports and research that are all available on our website and are part of a partnership with GIZ and BMZ.